Welcome to the Native World with the Aztecs. In this section of the Native American world, you're going to look at vocabulary like Aztecs, Chinampas, deity, flourish, Hernan Cortez, Mexico City, Montezuma or Moctezuma, polytheism, Quetzalcoatl, Tenochtitlan, Toltec, and human sacrifice. You can find the definition or the extension of these words in a Quizlet link at the top of this page. The history of the Aztecs starts out with the Toltec. Despite their frequent wars, the Mayan people continued to thrive through AD 900s. When their cities in the Yucatan were abandoned for unknown reasons, some anthropologists believe that the Mayan farmers may have exhausted the region's soil. This in turn would have led famine, riots, and the collapse of the cities. Others believe that the invaders from the north devastated the region. Mayan cities in the highlands of what is today Guatemala flourished for several more centuries, although by the 1500s they too were in decline. In the meantime, people known as the Toltec began building a city called Tula. The Toltec were master architects. They built large pyramids and huge palaces with pillared halls. They were among the first Native Americans to use gold and copper for art and jewelry. To the right side of the slide, you'll see a box where you put the main idea and details. The main idea of this slide was that the Mayan Empire had collapsed, but those people did not go away. The people known as the Toltec began building a city in Tula. The details would be that the Tula or the Toltec people built large pyramids, huge palaces. They were among the first to use gold and copper for their art and jewelry. About AD 1200, Tula fell to invaders from the north, known as the Chichimex. One group of Chichimex, called the Mexica, established a city of Tenochtitlan in 1325 on the site of what is today Mexico City. The Mexica took the name Aztec for themselves, from the name of their original homeland, Aztlan. Aztlan is thought to have been located somewhere in America Southwest. The Aztec created a mighty empire by conquering neighboring cities. Using their military power, the Aztec controlled trade in the region and demanded tribute or payment from the cities they conquered. They also brought some of the people they conquered to Tenochtitlan to serve as human sacrifices in the religious ceremonies. When the Europeans arrived in the 1500s, an estimated 5 million people were living under Aztec rule. Aztecs. The Aztecs, who probably originated as a nomadic tribe in northern Mexico, arrived in Mesoamerica around the beginning of the 13th century. From their magnificent capital city, Tenochtitlan, the Aztecs emerged as the dominant force in central Mexico, developing an intricate social, political, religious, and commercial organization that brought many of the region's city-states under the control by the 15th century. Invaders led by Spanish conquistador Hernan Cortez overthrew the Aztec Empire by force and captured Tenochtitlan in 1521, bringing an end to the Mesoamerica's last great native civilization. Let's talk about the early Aztec history. The exact origins of the Aztec people are uncertain, but they are believed to have begun as a northern tribe of hunter and gatherers whose name came from the homeland Aztlan, or White Land, in the Aztec language of Nahuatl. The Aztecs were known as the Tenochca, from which the name their capital city, Tenochtitlan, was derived, or the Mexica, which is the origin of the name of the city that would replace Tenochtitlan, as well as the name for the entire country. The Aztecs appeared in Mesoamerica as the south-central region of pre-Columbia Mexico is known. In the early 13th century, their arrival came just after, or perhaps helped bring about, the fall of the previous dominant Mesoamerican civilization, the Toltecs. Did you know that the Aztec language, Nahuatl, was the dominant language in Central America by the mid-1350s? Numerous Nahuatl words, borrowed by the Spanish, were later absorbed into the English as well, including chili or chili, avocado, chocolate, coyote, peyote, guacamole, ocelot, and mezcal. When the Aztecs saw the eagle perched on the cactus on the marshy land near the southwest border of Lake Texcoco, they took it as a sign to build their settlement there. They drained the swampy land, constructed artificial islands on which they could plant gardens, and establish the foundations of their capital city, Tenochtitlan, in 1325 AD. Typical Aztec crops included maize, which is corn, along with beans, squash, potatoes, tomatoes, and avocados. They also supported themselves through fishing, hunting local animals such as rabbits, armadillos, snakes, coyotes, and wild turkey. Their relatively sophisticated system of agriculture included intensive cultivation of land and irrigation methods, and a powerful military tradition would enable the Aztec to build a successful state and later an empire. Next, can you explain the advanced system of agriculture in the Aztec Empire? The Aztec Empire. In 1429, under the leader of Itzcoatl, the Aztecs formed a three-way alliance with the Texcocans and the Tacubans to defeat their most powerful rivals for influence in the region. The Tepanec, and conqueror of the capital of Azcapotzalco. Okay, that one's pretty hard. Itzcoatl's successor, Moctezuma, who took power in 1440, was a great warrior who was remembered for the father of the Aztec Empire. By the early 16th century, the Aztecs had come to rule over up to 500 small states and some 5 to 6 million people, either by conquest or commerce. Tenochtitlan, at its height, had more than 140,000 inhabitants and was the most densely populated city ever to exist in Mesoamerica. Bustling markets such as Tenochtitlan's Tlaxcalco, visited by 50,000 people on major market days, drove the Aztecs' economy. The Aztec civilization was also highly developed socially, intellectually, and artistically. It was a highly structured society with a strict caste system. At the top were nobles, while at the bottom were serfs, indentured servants, and slaves. Can you describe the Aztec economy and what made it highly developed? Aztec religion or region. The Aztec faith, it's supposed to be religion. Religion. The Aztec faith shared many aspects with other Mesoamerica religions. like that of the Maya, notably including the rite of human sacrifice. In the great cities of the Aztec Empire, magnificent temples, palaces, plazas, and statues embodied the civilization's unfailing devotion to the many Aztec gods, including the god of war and of the sun, and Quetzalcoatl, which is the feathered serpent, a Toltec god who served many important roles in the Aztec faith over the years. The Great Temple, or Templo Mayor, in the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan, was dedicated to Huitzilopochtli and Tlaloc, the rain god. Those gods' names are really hard to pronounce sometimes. The Aztec calendar, common in much of Mesoamerica, was based on a solar cycle of 365 days and a ritual cycle of 260 days. The calendar played a central role in the religion and the rituals of the Aztec society. Can you now describe the characteristics of the Aztec religion? European invasion and the fall of the Aztec civilization. There we go. The first European to visit Mexican territory was Francisco Hernandez de Cordoba, who arrived in Yucatan from Cuba with 3 ships and about 100 men in early 1517. Cordoba's reports on his return to Cuba prompted the Spanish governor there, Diego Velázquez, to send a larger force back to Mexico under the command of Hernán Cortés. In March 1519, Cortés landed at the town of Tabasco, where he learned from the natives of the great Aztec civilization, then ruled by Montezuma or Moctezuma II. Defining the authority of Velázquez, Cortés founded the city of Veracruz on the southeastern Mexican coast, where he trained his army into a disciplined fighting force. Cortés and some 400 soldiers then marched into Mexico City, aided by a native woman known as Malinche, who served as translator. Thanks to instability within the Aztec Empire, Cortés was able to form alliances with other native peoples, notably the Tlaxcalans, who went to war with Montezuma. In November of 1519, Cortés and his men arrived in Tenochtitlan, where Montezuma and his people greeted them as honored guests according to Aztec custom, partially due to Cortés's physical resemblance in a light-skinned Quetzalcoatl, whose return was prophesied in Aztec legend. Though the Aztecs had superior numbers, their weapons were inferior, and Cortés was able to immediately take Montezuma and encourage his entourage of lords hostage, gaining control of Tenochtitlan. The Spaniards then murdered thousands of Aztec nobles during the ritual dance ceremony, and Montezuma died under uncertain circumstances while in custody. Can you now describe why Cortés was so successful in conquering the Aztec? European diseases like smallpox, mumps, measles were also powerful weapons against the local population, who lacked immunity to them. A Franciscan monk traveled with Cortés, observed the impact of smallpox to the Aztecs. They died in heaps. In many places it happened that everyone in a house died, and as it was impossible to bury the great number of dead, they pulled down the house over them so that their homes became their tombs. By 1520, smallpox had reduced the population of Tenochtitlan by 40% in just 1 year. Cuauhtémoc, Montezuma's young nephew, took over as emperor, and the Aztecs drove the Spaniards from the city, with the help of the Aztecs' native rivals. Cortez mounted an offensive against Tenochtitlan, finally defeating Cuauhtémoc resistance on August 13, 1521. In all, some 240,000 people were believed to have died in the city's conquest, which effectively ended the Aztec civilization. After his victory, Cortez razed Tenochtitlan and built Mexico City on its ruins. It became the premier European center of the New World.